Black man adopts a rejected girl. 35 years later, she does this behind his back. Shocked everyone. It was a chilly autumn afternoon in a quiet Midwestern town when Michael first saw her. Volunteers had gathered at the annual foster care fair, handing out blankets and hot chocolate, hoping to brighten the lives of kids who had already faced too much. That's when Michael noticed a small girl sitting alone by the playground. She looked about 9 years old, wearing a worn-out purple jacket, her dark curls tangled and loose around her face. While the other kids ran and shouted, she stayed quietly, by herself, her deep brown eyes watching the clouds drift overhead. Michael didn't know her name yet, but something about her calm, distant smile pulled him closer. He sat on the bench beside her and said softly, "Hey, I'm Michael. What's your name?" She looked up, surprise flickering across her face before she nodded shyly. "I'm Ava," she whispered. For the next half hour, they talked softly, about everything and nothing, her love for drawing, the stories she liked, and how she dreamed of a family to call her own. When the fair ended, Ava stood and waved goodbye, her small hand lingering in the air as if unsure she'd see him again. Michael's heart stayed with Ava long after the day was over. The foster care workers told him she'd been passed over by many families. Her special needs made others hesitate. They warned him it would be hard, maybe even heartbreaking. But Michael listened and nodded. He had faced loneliness himself growing up without a father, and somehow, he knew he couldn't walk away. 2 weeks later, he returned with paperwork, in hand, ready to bring Ava home. The day Ava arrived, she wore that same purple jacket and carried a worn sketchbook. The ride to Michael's house was quiet, but every time he glanced at her through the rearview mirror, her gentle smile gave him hope. His small house wasn't much, 2 bedrooms, a creaky floorboard here and there, but he promised it would be hers too. He painted her room soft blue and filled it with art supplies and picture books. Every morning, Michael made her breakfast, and every night he read her stories, his voice steady and patient. Ava called him Dad, clinging to him during storms and trusting him to brush her tangled hair before school. And when others didn't understand her, Michael stood firm, his love never wavering. But no one knew what Ava would do behind his back 35 years later. That night, Michael couldn't sleep. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Ava's small hands folded in her lap, her eyes lost in thought like she was waiting on something no one ever promised. He knew that kind of waiting. He'd waited too, his whole childhood, for someone who never came. That connection, that quiet understanding, it was more than chance. It was something written deeper than words, in places only the forgotten ever really feel. And somehow, it felt like Ava had been left in that park just for him. The next morning, Michael went back, not for the fair, not for the food, but to see if she was still there. She wasn't. The field was empty, the volunteers packing up signs and folding tables into vans. But he spotted the director, a middle-aged woman with tired eyes and a clipboard, and asked her about the girl with the purple jacket. The woman's expression softened. "Ava," she said, nodding. "She's been in the system a long time. Sweet kid. Just overlooked." Michael asked what that meant. She hesitated, then added quietly, "She has a mild cognitive delay. Some people want perfect. She's not that, but she's good, real good." Those words haunted Michael the whole drive home. Not perfect, but good. What did that even mean? Nobody's perfect. And if love only worked for perfect people, nobody would ever be loved. He thought about the way Ava had smiled at the sky, like even without anyone beside her, she still found something worth believing in. That kind of heart didn't need fixing. It needed room to grow. By the time he pulled into his driveway, he already knew. He had to go back. Not to visit. Not to wonder. To become the person she could count on when the world refused to. For 2 weeks, Michael filled out forms, sat through interviews, background checks, and counseling sessions. The process was slow, filled with questions and sideways glances. Do You have experience with children? Are you sure you can handle her needs? You work 2 jobs. How will you make time? He answered everyone, his voice steady but heart pounding. He didn't have all the answers, but he had something nobody else had offered Ava: unwavering commitment. That was enough to sign the papers. That was enough to become her father. He arrived at the center on a Sunday morning with a blanket in one hand and a stuffed fox in the other. Ava waited by the front door, wearing the same jacket and holding her sketchbook close. She didn't ask questions. She didn't say much. But when Michael knelt down and offered her the stuffed fox, she hugged it tightly and whispered, "Thank you, Dad." In that moment, the entire world shifted. He wasn't just a man with an empty house anymore. He was a father. And Ava wasn't a rejected child. She was someone finally chosen for the first time in her life. The first few weeks in Michael's home were quiet, cautious, like walking barefoot on unfamiliar ground. Ava barely spoke unless spoken to, always watching, always waiting, like part of her didn't believe she was really allowed to stay. Her suitcase sat half unpacked in the corner of her room, and though Michael told her again and again, "This is your home now," she still folded her clothes like she might leave tomorrow. Every time he knocked on her door, she startled, expecting trouble instead of love. And every time he smiled gently and said, "Just checking on you," her eyes softened, just a little more. Michael rearranged his life for her without thinking, twice. He cut down his evening shifts, gave up his weekend overtime, and learned how to make the exact kind of mac and cheese Ava liked. Extra creamy, no crust on the side of the bowl. He made flashcards to help her read, and together they turned every evening into a quiet victory. But it wasn't easy. There were nights Ava cried without reason, mornings she refused to get out of bed, and moments when she broke pencils over math worksheets in frustration. Through it all, Michael stayed close, never raising his voice, never leaving the room. There was one evening, just before Christmas, when Ava refused to hang any ornaments on the tree. Michael asked her why. She didn't answer. Instead, she walked over to the window and stared out at the snow, whispering, "Every year I decorated a tree, and every year someone else took it away." That night, Michael took her hand and said, "Then let this be the first tree that stays." They sat, together, stringing lights in silence, until finally, Ava placed a single paper star at the top. "It's not perfect," she said. "But it's ours," Michael replied. And that was the first time she smiled without fear. At school, Ava struggled. Her speech was soft, her pace slower than the other kids, and while some teachers tried their best, others weren't patient. Michael became her advocate, her voice in every meeting, the man who refused to let her be forgotten again. He sat through every parent-teacher conference, highlighted her progress, fought for her to be seen not just for her struggles, but for her strengths. "She sees the world differently," he'd say. "That doesn't mean she's behind. It means she sees what most of us miss." Slowly, the school began to listen. Even slower, the other kids began to notice her kindness. But the hardest part wasn't the academics. It was trust. Ava still flinched when Michael reached for her shoulder, still asked, "Are you mad?" when she spilled juice or dropped her fork. Once, after accidentally breaking a plate, she hid in the closet for nearly an hour. Michael sat outside the door, heart aching, until she finally whispered, "I thought you'd give me back." His voice cracked when he answered, "I'm never giving you back. You're mine now, Ava. Forever." From that day forward, she started to believe him. Not all at once, but one soft, brave moment at a time. By spring, something gentle had taken root between them. Ava no longer hesitated to speak at the dinner table, and Michael started to hear her laughter from down the hallway. Light, unguarded, like wind chimes in the sun. They'd sit on the back porch eating popsicles, Michael listening to her talk, about clouds that looked like castles and dogs she'd name if she ever got one. He let her hold the hose when they washed his car, even though she soaked him every time, and he didn't care. That laughter, her laughter, was worth every wet sock and splattered shirt. They built routines together like stepping stones. Saturday mornings were for pancakes with chocolate chips, Wednesday nights, board games on the living room floor, and every night before bed, Ava would hand him her sketchbook, asking him to pick one drawing to tape on the wall. "You're an artist," he'd say, pointing to a crooked flower or a smiling sun. Ava beamed every time, like she was hearing it for the first time. He kept a folder of her artwork in his desk drawer, the pages worn from pride. "One day," he'd say, "these will hang in a gallery." One rainy afternoon, Ava came home crying. Some girls at school had called her names, whispered things about how she wasn't normal. Michael crouched to her level, holding her shaking hands as she sobbed. "They said I'm broken," she whimpered. He brushed her hair back slowly and said, "You are not broken, Ava. You're rare, and rare things are precious." The next day, she wore her favorite purple jacket again, chin high, steps slow but steady. And when Michael picked her up that afternoon, she ran into his arms like the world had finally seen her through his eyes. Over time, she began calling him Dad without thinking, not just during storms or hard days, but in casual, everyday ways. "Dad, can we go to the library?" Or, "Dad, I saved you the last cookie." And each time she said it, Michael's heart swelled in his chest like it might burst. He hadn't realized how much he'd needed that word until it came from her lips. Unforced, unplanned, real. She drew pictures of the two of them, always together, always smiling. And Michael, who had once eaten every meal alone, now found his world centered around the sound of her voice across the table. She learned to trust because he never stopped showing up. Through every bad grade, every scraped knee, every silent morning when she couldn't explain her feelings, Michael was there. He didn't fix everything. He just stayed, and that made all the difference. She'd fall asleep on the couch with her head on his shoulder, and he wouldn't move for hours, afraid to break the peace. They weren't perfect, but they were. Home. And slowly, piece by piece, Ava stopped waiting to be abandoned. Because for the first time, she truly believed what he always told her. "You are mine. Always." Years passed, and Michael's hair began to silver at the temples, each gray strand a quiet witness to the battles they'd fought and the love they'd built. Ava blossomed into a young woman, strong, independent, and full of dreams he never dared hope she'd have. The small house that once felt too crowded now echoed with memories. Birthday parties, late-night talks, and the countless times Michael had stayed up waiting for her to come home safe. When Ava told him she was moving out to start college, a mix of pride and heartbreak tangled in his chest. "I'm proud of you," he whispered, "but this house won't be the same without you." The morning she packed her bags, the air felt heavy with goodbyes unspoken. Michael watched her fold her purple jacket carefully, the same one she'd worn that first day, now worn soft and familiar. Ava hugged him tightly, her tears soaking through his shirt. "Thank you for never giving up on me," she said, voice trembling. "You made me believe I belonged somewhere." As she walked out the door, Michael stayed behind, sitting in the quiet room they'd shared, surrounded by sketches and photographs, a lifetime of moments etched into the walls. Though the house felt emptier, his heart swelled with hope for the future. Ava faced the world with the confidence Michael had helped her find. College was a whirlwind of new faces and endless possibilities, but she never forgot where she came from. She called home every week, sharing stories and seeking advice, their bond only growing stronger with distance. Michael, now slower but still steady, found comfort in those calls. He reminded her that no matter how far she went, their home was always waiting. And in the silence between the conversations, he dreamed of what was yet to come, never imagining the surprise Ava had planned, something that would change everything. Ava had always been quiet about her plans, but behind that calm smile was a secret she'd kept carefully hidden. Months after moving out, Michael received an unexpected call, her voice trembling, yet filled with determination. "Dad, I need to tell you something. Something I've been working on all this time." His heart raced as she shared her dream. Ava had been saving every penny from her part-time jobs, every scholarship dollar, all to buy a house. Not just any house, but a place where they could rebuild their family's story, a home full of hope and new beginnings. "I wanted it to be a surprise," she said softly, "because you never stopped believing in me, even when no one else did." Michael's eyes welled up as he listened, realizing the depth of her love and gratitude. She wasn't just building a future for herself, she was creating a legacy for both of them. Ava explained how she'd searched for months, found a modest house with a garden perfect for late-night talks and laughter, just like they used to share. "I want us to fill it with memories," she said. "A new chapter, together." The objective weight of the years, the struggles, and the unwavering bond between them filled that quiet moment with something unbreakable. Michael felt hope surge stronger than ever. His little girl, the one everyone once overlooked, was about to change their lives forever. The day Ava finally led Michael to the house was crisp and bright, the kind of morning that promised new beginnings. Michael's hands trembled as she handed him the keys, a simple gesture carrying years of hope, sacrifice, and love. Stepping inside, the worn floors creaked beneath their feet, but to Michael, it felt like the most beautiful place on earth, because it was theirs. Ava had decorated the living room with photos of their journey, the first shaky smiles, the late-night talks, the moments that had shaped their bond. Tears welled in Michael's eyes as he realized this house wasn't just a gift. It was a testament to Ava's resilience, a symbol of everything they had overcome together. As they walked through each room, memories flooded back, of struggles, laughter, and endless patience. Ava looked up at Michael, her eyes shining with pride and love. "This is where we heal, Dad," she said softly, "where we build the future we both dreamed of." In that moment, the weight of the past lifted, replaced by a quiet strength born from years of unwavering devotion. Michael knew that no matter what came next, they would face it side by side, bound forever by a love that had turned rejection into hope and loneliness into family. Evening settled softly over the small town, casting a golden glow through the porch's worn wooden slats. Michael and Ava sat side by side on the old rocking chairs, the quiet hum of crickets filling the air. The house behind them stood strong, no longer just a building, but a home shaped by years of love, struggle, and unbreakable bonds. Ava rested, her head on Michael's shoulder, a simple gesture that spoke volumes of gratitude and belonging. They watched the sunset together, memories flickering like the fading light of lonely beginnings, tireless efforts, and the quiet moments when hope almost slipped away. But through it all, they had each other. Michael smiled softly, his heart full, knowing that every sacrifice had led to this peaceful moment. "We did it, Mia," he whispered, using the name she'd chosen so long ago. "We're home." Ava squeezed his hand, her eyes reflecting the warmth of the fading day. "Thank you, Dad, for never giving up on me." And as the stars began to twinkle above, father and daughter sat in the calm of a love that had transformed two lives forever. Proof that family is built not by blood, but by the heart. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to smash that thumbs up and hit subscribe for more unforgettable, emotional, and viral true stories. We want to hear from you. Drop a comment and tell us, where in the world are you watching from?